Hey Pigeon, what time is it? Are you sure? Alright! My friends, a very special event is happening this year. My favorite superhero is turning 80. Now, as a rather big Superman fan, in more ways than one, I am going to have quite a decent celebration of this year. And to start it all off, we are going to introduce a brand new special intro just for the 80th anniversary. Hit it! My friends, throughout your life as a Superman fan, you may find yourself vexed by something we all must do. Something that is no easy feat, but we all do it at least once. A rite of passage that... Okay, what I'm getting into is that we all watch Superman Returns at least one point in our lives. You clicked on the video, you know what we're talking about. And to briefly cover the movie, I can say that it's as boring as all get out. But there are elements that make me think it could have worked had they not tried to make it a remake. The costume, for a time where Spider-Man looked like this, is pretty good. Brandon Routh does a great job capturing the essence of Superman, Reeve influence or not. Kevin Spacey was an excellent Lex Luthor, regardless of your opinions on the actor. And Kate Bosworth...
I speak not, Bosworth.
Okay, fair enough. I also found the effects to be pretty decent, and with the same people going in a slightly different creative direction, this would have been a perfectly fine Superman movie. But it's not that movie. It's a boring, slow movie with very little action and a few head scratchers when you overthink things. Like, why does Superman need a spaceship that big? Why is there screaming in the train sequence? Is that just in Lex's head, or is it actually happening? Why has no one noticed the giant crystal structure coming out of the Vanderworth mansion? That's clearly daylight seeping in, so it's obviously burst to the roof. Also, why doesn't Jor-El realize he's talking to Lex Luthor and not Superman here? He's clearly capable of having a full conversation, so he isn't just a recording. Are you seriously telling me that Kryptonians can make 3D images appear in crystals that grow an entire island, but they couldn't make it able to identify who it's talking to? And don't tell me that this happened in Superman 2 as well, because it was done there too. And wait, considering how Superman 1 and 2 are both in continuity for this movie, why does this movie entirely contradict the ending to Superman 2?
Sorry I've been away so long. I won't let you down again.
Alright, let's stop talking about the movie, and let's get into the merchandise. Let's start off with some merchandise I don't physically have anymore, but I have experiences with, starting with the Superman inflatable suit. I had wanted a Superman suit for a while, so naturally, I wanted this. However, once I discovered that I was about a year or two older than the recommended age, so the thing barely fit, and within a few months it didn't fit at all. Physical girth did not help that. I tried to cut the back in half and wear it that way, but ultimately it met the trash. I did get the symbol for my cape traced off it though. However, that entry doesn't hurt as much as the next one. You see, if I were so inclined, I could jump on eBay and buy a new Superman inflatable suit. I can't say the same, however, for the greatest cereal of all time. Superman Crunch. I mean, just look at it! It's Captain Crunch with Superman logos that turn the milk blue. This is the stuff that childhood dreams are made out of. Oh yeah, and the travesty that was the Batman v Superman cereals just made me want this stuff even more. I mean, seriously, can't we just get a revival like we did with the Oreo cereal? Anyway, let's move into the physical realm for a bit with the Superman Returns Monopoly. For this segment, we will be using both my standard background and my bed with a Superman comforter. Yes, I'm single, why do you ask? Alright, after you get out that awesome board, the setup is basically just standard Monopoly, but Superman's powers of super strength, flight, super hearing, and X-ray vision replace railroad spaces. Krypton and Earth replace Electric Company and Waterworks respectively, Kryptonite asteroid field damage replaces income tax, and Daily Planet subscription renewal replaces luxury tax. Oh boy, I'm glad I renewed my subscription to my favorite newspaper. I wonder what's on the front page today. Oh. By the way, houses and hotels are renamed Crystal Shards and Crystal Structures, even though they look exactly the same as the normal game. You also get these neat little game pieces like the Daily Planet Globe, Clark Kent's glasses, Silver Kryptonite to give all your friends hallucinations, Superman's boot, Superman's crest, and the piece I always played as, Superman. The fun part about this piece is that you can give them to all your action figures as a trophy. Oh, and apparently these guys are collectibles. Can't wait to see how much money I can get off of these babies. I'm gonna be set for life, guaranteed. Oh yeah, speaking of money, look at this awesome Superman cash we've got in the game. We can use it to buy all these prominent locations from the movie, like Vanderwerth train set, or the Gertrude Pantry, or even, dare we have a more iconic location, the Arctic landscape. Otherwise, not much to this game. Next. Now going from physical to digital, let's talk about the video game. Specifically, the version for the Nintendo DS. Now, for starters, let's compare the cover art between the video game and the movie. The game features his fist busting through a wall at an admittedly weird angle, revealing the shield to massive effect. You look at this cover and go, oh yeah, Superman is back, baby. You look at the DVD cover and it's like, yeah, I'm flying by a burning plane and stuff, I don't care. Any other DVD covers I see for this movie have about the same effect, and I honestly don't know why. It does kind of define the big difference between the movie and the game, though. By the way, I should note that this game was made by EA, so I'm going to require a small microtransaction before we proceed with this video. What, you're not going to pay? Well then, I hope you enjoyed footage recorded straight from the DS, because that's what you're getting. Okay, legit though, I did try to get a DS emulator for clearer footage, but I couldn't get it to download past 10%, and I don't feel like dealing with it anymore. Okay, there isn't really much to this game. For story, first you fly around in a crystal ship to get back to Earth, then Mongol attacks. You fight him, fight a threat or two before Brainiac, and admittedly kind of a cool design, attacks. You fight him, do a threat or two, then save the airplane. After that, Parasite escapes from prison and you fight him. After fighting even more threats, Bizarro comes out of nowhere and causes havoc. Rinse and repeat until you fight Metallo, defeat all threats on the map before Metropolis dies, then you save Lois and throw an island into the sky. Now, admittedly, that doesn't seem like a lot now, does it? Well, that's because this game is basically just a big old series of mini-games. Not that I really mind. Alright, every single minigame follows the structure of B to fly and initiates super speed, X to land, L&R to raise and lower yourself when not in super speed, and the control pad to maneuver with. Additionally, when needed, the Y and A buttons are used for freeze breath and heat vision respectively, unless X-ray vision is required. Complete the objective by a time limit and you win. Most of these minigames kind of meld into each other, but there are a few notable ones. Like one-on-one where you fight a giant Metallo, or the Big Freeze where you fight giant gorillas that are frozen civilians.
I hate monkeys.
The most notable one to me, though, is Secret Surfing. The premise alone makes this thing worth it. Basically, you're Clark Kent running around looking for a phone booth to use to change into Superman. And if you fail, it literally implies that you never changed into Superman. Seriously. Really, Clark? You couldn't just duck into an alley or spin around in a door like you did in the first Superman movie? You really have to use the phone booth? You know, I think there's only one clip we can really use to sum this up.
Gee, they're holding up the First Metropolis Bank. Wish this Gabby lady would get off the phone.
Another notable thing about the gameplay is the boss battles. You see, you don't have any massive gameplay segments for these. Oh no. You've just got Superman and the villain punching each other in the air while you push buttons. Every button you press does damage to the enemy, while any button you miss or hit by mistake does damage to you. Whoever dies first is a loser, and you can only save your progress by winning these matches. This is where I must note the difficulty settings of the game, because I've actually got on easy for most of the gameplay footage here. These boss fights are the reason why. You see, on normal, it's a bit faster, but not too hard overall. Put on hard, though. Literally Really, the only other thing that changes is time limits and codes, so, might as well play on easy. Oh yeah, did I mention the codes? Basically, they're for actions within the game, like picking up a submarine, or unhooking a space shuttle from the back of a plane, because that was literally the worst idea they could have had. Ah, this debris field! Yeah, the biggest sin committed by the code system is that the entire last level is nothing but codes. Yeah, it could have been the giant metallified or anything like that, but no, it's just a bunch of codes. Yeah. The last thing to note is the extras on this game. For example, you may have noticed how strange Superman has looked throughout this gameplay. That's because this game is loaded with skins. You obviously have the Superman Returns costume and pod suit. By the way, if you think the indies somehow make Superman look ridiculous, just check out this run cycle in a onesie. You'll thank me later. You also have a varied amount of skins from the comics, like the Resurrection suit from when he came back from the dead, the Colors of Morning from the aftermath of some event, the Golden Age version, and some alternate universe takes like the Apocalypse armor, Monster, Noble Cow, and the one that I've been playing as, Earth 2. Why have I been playing as the Earth 2 Superman? Because he's the only one with a yellow S shield on his cape. Which is odd to me since the Golden Age Superman stuff that I'm currently reading has him with a yellow S shield. But this guy just has a bunch of yellow bits on his cape. Odd. Also, I think he was originally going to be a Fleischer version due to his Villain Defeat logo having that version. But I guess some right stuff cropped up. Only problem I see here is that Clark Kent isn't a playable skin. I mean, he's fully modeled and usable, so why not? Also, it really helps that the manual tells us who some of these people are, because I imagine that I'd be pretty confused otherwise. I mean, even today, some of these versions are pretty obscure. And last but not least, a decent part of my nostalgia for this game, the comic book covers. Yeah, if you collect these crystals throughout the game, you can unlock all these comic book covers. These inform me to a lot of interesting tidbits about Superman history through the descriptions, but lo and behold, there is at least one inaccuracy that I can nerdily point out. It says that Action Comics number 13 was when his flight power was revealed, but it's not actually. Believe me, I read this issue expecting it, but all we get is a small line that Superman takes a flying leap, and he kinda gets into the clouds later, but otherwise he still leaps for the most part. The issue is still notable in Superman history though, as this was the first time he ever encountered a supervillain. First ever recurring antagonist, the Ultra-Humanite, which seems to form the basis for what Lex Luthor ultimately became. Another fun element is the fact that this game has multiplayer, and I'm talking the kind that you only need one game chip for. Granted, you can only play a level at a time and you can't choose your skins, but when the only people you had to play with were your siblings, these were always very appreciated. Overall, this game is pretty lame, but a lot of fun. The variation of levels that can come with each playthrough gives it a lot of replayability. I still find myself coming back to play it over a decade later. Check it out if you find it at a decent price, or you can just emulate it for free.
Now, all that merchandise was perfectly fine and good, and honestly, there is more that we could talk about, but this video is just starting to get a bit long, so why don't we wrap up with something more in the spirit of the channel? That's right, I'm talking about action figures.
Now, what shall our first figure be? Okay, where do I start here? Seriously, which joke do I make first? The one about him whistling down a street? Or how he's about to give she who shall not be named a big ol' smackaroo? Wait, I have an idea.
Drink, my child.
Tell me, do you bleed?
Okay, I better stop before this segment dominates the rest of the video. Next. Now on to a product that we can talk about more seriously. Here's the House of L set. The box has some pretty neat images over it, and if you want to display it in the box, I would not blame you. Mainly because that's how I do it. Anyway, after you get the main box separated from the thing holding the figures, you have to untwist about a dozen twisty ties around each limb, rather than simply snipping them like a normal person, because they might come in handy for a display someday. You should only really keep about 2 in the packaging to scare the feet, should you decide to repackage this, since otherwise the bubble holds them pretty well. Only really gonna focus on Jor-El for this review, since he's got the most to say between the two, and man, his likeness is actually pretty good. That's almost dead on, in fact. It's honestly kinda shocking. The rest of the body isn't much to write home about, though. It's basically just a standard Superman body painted silver with a robe over it. They do appear to have painted the symbol black, but the silver underneath it just makes it shiny. Whilst I know that silver is technically accurate to the costumes used in the first movie, I think white would have been a better color choice. And maybe sewing the robes in a way to make the symbol a bit more visible would have been a better approach. But otherwise, this set isn't too bad, and I highly recommend it. Especially for those who want to enact a wacky Kryptonian sitcom.
Dad! Yes, son? Can I borrow the crystal spaceship tonight? Most certainly not. We're having a guest over tonight, and I want you to be present, young man. Ugh. You know, Dad, sometimes I wish you had just rocketed me to Earth as an infant. Sometimes I wish the same. Kneel before Zod!
Now on to some true nostalgia, and whoa, what happened here? Well, guess we know what Superman was punching on the video game cover. And while I do like the design of this packaging for the most part, it's a bit too large in my opinion. Like, seriously, you couldn't cut down the length of the top a bit? Anyway, onto the figure, and really the line in general. I've always really liked how they translated the suit into action figure form. With all the mini square texture on all those areas, and the mini S's texturing that S shield, it just looks good. Admittedly, the added musculature isn't good if you want a movie-accurate figure, but I don't mind it. Also, the head sculpt completely missed the likeness, but they did eventually get it right. On a completely different character, I'll admit, but hey, improvement is improvement. By the way, I should note that I really like the capes on these figures, and I think that modern figures could learn from it. It's not only a nice, light fabric, but it also doesn't have anything sculpted over it to represent the attachment at the neck. Unlike other figures even recently where they do just that, and make the transition to fabric as obvious as possible. This one is all the fabric and is very aesthetically pleasing as a result. Another neat feature of these figures is the neck articulation. This is the perfect articulation for a flying character, and I want any future toy designers here to take notes, because this is important. You see, the Superman Returns figures are on a double ball peg, which not only allows the head to go up, down, left, and right, but it also allows it to tilt, which might not seem like such a big deal, but it adds so much to a figure in terms of expression. I mean, the neck hinge is nice and all, but come on, admit it. You've felt the limitations a few times while posing your figures. The rest of the articulation is pretty passable, so let's just do it live. Okay, now for all the articulation besides the head, his shoulders swivel, his elbows bend, as you saw just there. His legs go forward, don't really go back, and his knees bend. So, a decent amount, I guess, but still kinda lacking. Oh yeah, and those other two figures had waist rotation and shoulder hinges. Curiously enough, the manual for this figure also shows it with foot hinges, but alas, those aren't on this figure. They are on other figures though, so if you want to do some swappage, you can. This articulation surpasses some modern figures, but has been exceeded by some modern figures as well, even in terms of just kid lines. I just wish that head articulation was used more. Enough about the line in general though, let's talk about the gimmick of this figure. You may have noticed all these dark blue patches on his torso. Well, that's because when you press his belt buckle, those light up to simulate that awesome scene where he just kind of walks towards the dude while a machine gun is being fired at him. Interestingly enough, these are the original batteries in there, and they still work just fine after all these years. He's also got a dial in his ribs to adjust it, and I honestly don't see the point of it. Just make it strobe randomly. But still, kind of a fun gimmick for play. This dude actually comes with a neat accessory, believe it or not. This machine gun reminiscent of the one in the movie. You know, considering semi-recent talks about the weapons coming with adult collector figures looking cartoonish, I'm kind of surprised that they got away with this gun looking so realistic. Though I guess it being a missile launcher kind of helps. Hey, Superman's supposed to be bulletproof, so let's test that out.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did. What you say? That it's all for the best, 'cause it is.
Oh wait, these are clearly kryptonite bullets. That explains a lot. Well, hopefully a good karate chop will help destroy that gun. Ah, what a neat feature. Hope that doesn't lead to that barrel being easily lost. Yeah, I lost my original one in like 2 days. Yeah, I should probably mention that. This Bulletproof Superman is actually a replacement for my original one that I got as a kid. That one lasted a few months until Big Boy over here sat on him and broke his head off. Don't ask me how that happened though. This dude was kept on the dresser, but somehow he got on the floor to be sat down on. A mystery to take to the grave, I guess. Anyway, my dad went out later that night and got me another figure to replace it, which had a lever in his back and could throw a collapsible Daily Planet globe. His butt later broke and made his legs fly off, and I was left without a proper Superman figure again. Now, in hindsight, I probably could have just easily glued his butt back together or done a head swap with my headless, but otherwise perfectly good Superman, but I guess I was just a stupid child. No matter the case, this is all I have left of those figures.
Well, there's plenty more where that came from, but I think we've seen enough for today. The movie wasn't all that much, but the merchandise is truly something to behold and in some cases cherish. So, with all that said, I'm Ben Tofire, sign out. I swear I saw a picture around here. Oh well, he'll turn up eventually. What's on the review schedule? Well, alright. I guess it had to happen eventually.